Okay, let's do a recap of Playday number 6 of Stage 3 of the NAL 2021 season. This is my second time recording this video because the first one was really long and I still had a few mistakes in it. And I think in the future, or at least for the time being, I'm going to try to make these recaps a little bit shorter and then have an additional video where I go more in depth talking about the games. So let's see if I can keep this sort of short. For the first game of the day, we had SSG versus TSM, followed by Beast Coast Sonics, Xset versus Dark Zero, and Mirage versus Astralis, the first game of the day. Space Station versus TSM took place on Oregon, and the map ban phase came down to SSG getting to pick between Oregon and Chalet, and it's a little bit curious that they decided to go with Oregon, because last time these two teams played, they played on Chalet, and it was a decisive victory, a 7-2 for Space Station. And maybe that's part of the reason that they didn't go to it, because they were very good on this stage. Very good on this map, rather, last stage, and they thought teams might adapt to it, or maybe they're just trying to catch TSM off guard. But regardless, it looks like a good choice because they did well on the map, but maybe not because of their strategy per se. It was Hot and Cold who was the story of this game, much like he has been the story of NAL's 2021 season. Hot and Cold drops, as you can see, a 4K in this round, a 4K in this round, and then I don't notate when they get fewer than a 4K multi-kill, but he gets a 3K in all 4 of these rounds. And also in this round, Bosco gets a 3K. So in every single round that SSG won, a player of theirs got at least a 3K or better. And in all of them except for one, it was Hot and Cold who got a 3K or a 4K. So, right, TSM started out on the defense of Oregon, so it's the favorite side. That's generally where you want to be. You want to run up the score really high before you switch sides. But in the ban phase, SSG banned Warden, and because defenders are banned after attackers, so you do attacker, attacker, defender, defender, you can't really counter it because Warden is the counter, and by eliminating him after you can take out the thing that he's supposed to be countering, i.e. like, you know, mostly Ying and Glass, you can't really counter Ying anymore. So, well, you sort of can, but not as effectively, right? You could still bring Aruni, Jaeger, Wamai, some combination of those to stop Ying's Candelas from being used solely, but then all you have to do is bring you can clear them in various different ways with Flores, with Twitch, or you can find places they're just not at and attack from there, or you can just burn them with with stun grenades, flash grenades, however you want to call them. You can do that sort of thing, and that's what SSG did. They just brought a Ying every round, and it worked out pretty well for them. So again, TSM took the first round, and then SSG took the next round, so it was looking good, but TSM took the next 2. Generally, because Oregon is so defender-sided, you want to take at least 4 of the rounds on your defending half, and that did not happen for TSM. SSG wins the last 2 rounds of the half, bringing it to 3-3, so it is looking quite good for SSG at this point. And then Hot and Cold just takes over the game. He gets a 3K in every single one of these rounds and just wins the game for his team. And this is similar to what happened last time they played. When they played on Chalet and it was the 7-2 for Space Station, Hot and Cold was going atomic. Like, he was destroying TSM then, and he's destroying them now. And there are other things I can maybe say about this game, but I think I'm going to leave it there because I will go a little bit more in depth in that other video I was talking about. And I will just play the clip. I think it's from round 7 here. It's a 3K by Hot and Cold, so not a 4K, but it's just really quickly at the end of the round, he shuts down the last 3 players from TSM, and it just looks like they can't do anything about it. He just makes them look silly like he does in most of the rounds in this game. And so that's why I picked this clip, and I will play it now.
He's going to go for a push in the hallway. Very dangerous. Will he get away with it? The answer is no. Actually, it's Chala who goes down. Pistol out, and Hawken gets a 3rd with the pistol. Beautiful play as he inserts himself in the midst of them all and just guns them down one by one.
So yeah, Hot and Cold, just dancing on him with that pistol. I guess, they were distracted. Time was running out. They needed to make a play, and Hot and Cold capitalized on them being in a rush to make that play, and he just took him out. So second game of the day, we had Beast Coast versus Sonics. They played on Chalet, and Sonics is once again getting away with the thing that they have for the other 2 stages of this season, where they just played 2 maps. They have played 5 games so far, and they have only played Chalet and Coastline. They are 1-1 on Coastline, and they are now, after this game, they're 3-0 on Chalet, but going into this game, they were 2-0 on Chalet. And actually, it was Coastline and Chalet, which were the last 2 maps. Sonics got to pick between the 2, Chalet and Coastline, and they opted for Chalet because they had a better record on it, and Coastline was the one map that they lost, and they lost to Xset, and Xset You know, it was an upset, and they didn't want the same kind of thing to happen against Beast Coast here. Chalet and Coastline are both similarly like attacker-favored maps, but you can control Chalet in a way that you can't Coastline. Coastline is a little bit more, I think, of a freak show, and Chalet is a little bit more structured, even if it's still attacker-favored. So, also interesting to know, this game perfectly mirrors the first game. So TSM and Beast Coast, and say TSM is Beast Coast and SSG is Sonic. You can see TSM wins every round that Beast Coast wins, and Sonics and SSG win the same rounds, like just down to the wire every single time. At the end of each game, it ends with a 6-round win streak from SSG and Sonics. Even the timeout is called in the same round. Of course, there's some flawless rounds and stuff in this game. Quite curious that they mirror each other. So yeah, it's just really cool to see. Interesting to note. At a certain point, I saw that this was trending in the game, and I was rooting for it to happen, and it did happen. So quite cool. This was also a pretty big destruction of Beast Coast, just like SSG destroyed TSM. But of course, Beast Coast being a lower tier team than TSM, it's maybe a little bit less impressive. But there were like 3 flawless rounds coming out, so they were smoking them. Every player on Sonics except for Super, who did fine this game, he went 4 and 5. But the other 4 players, I think they all went +5 or better. It was like an 8 and 3, a 12 and 6, and 2 10 and 5s or something. So they all put up really good ratings. 3 of Sonic's players, I think, are really high in the overall the ratings standings. It's like Yeti, Grixer, and Kansan are all around top 10, if not in top 10. Very impressive. So yeah, just a big beatdown this game. Not too much to say about it. Beast Coast was looking okay at the beginning for maybe the first 4 rounds, but then they did not win another round after that. And I think not much more to say about that game. But the clip I'm going to show here is in round, it's in round 2. And this game, it goes from a 5v5. Beast Coast are just about to execute onto the bar object, or well, I guess the game's side of the bar game's objective. They are 2 players jump in the window, but Super kills them both. The round goes from a 5v5 to a 5v0, so a flawless win for the Sonics in like 5, 6, 7 seconds. So it's just really, really quick. So I will show that clip right here.
No hits so far.
Well, there's flashes in to possibly catch any magnets, burn ADSs. Do they get the all clear? They do. There's still smokes in the hand of Anthony, so he's going to get somewhere, but Super joins the fight. He gets real aggressive and reads this play so perfectly, as does all of Sonics, leading to a very quick, flawless round.
And then let's move on to the next game. We have Xset versus Dark Zero. They play on Villa, and this is the first Villa we've seen of the stage. The next game is also on Villa, which is a little bit interesting. But going into this game, it seemed Dark Zero favored because Xset was on just 1 win, and they'd been struggling. They got that surprise win against the Sonics, but they couldn't beat any of the other low tier teams, which they'd been pitted against all of them already. And Dark Zero was struggling a little bit, but you know, they lost to Sonics, good team. They beat TSM, and they beat somebody else, I don't remember. And so going into this game, you would expect Dark Zero to win, especially after seeing the map, because Dark Zero has been really, really good on Villa lately. I think in NAL they haven't lost it in quite a while, and then even internationally, I think they lost it like 1 time, maybe at the Mexico Major. But yeah, it did not play out the way that was expected though. Xset came out in force, and I guess the Reddit commenters who were on my predictions post, they were like 2 different guys that were saying that they thought Xset was gonna win. They were right. And I thought they were saying it was gonna be a beatdown. Maybe they were trolling or whatever, and they said NVK was gonna expose Fraudnadian or whatever, and maybe they did. I mean, Xset got the win, but it did take them. You can see here, it took them all 15 rounds. And it was sloppy by DZ for sure. There were a bunch of errors, just like in the Sonics game. There was one really big error by Canadian one round, where he's outside of the closet window. He throws in all of his flashes, and then he jumps in and he flashes himself. I think his timing wasn't that bad, but he thought that the flash had gone deeper in to where he wouldn't get flashed. So, I mean, technically his timing was bad, but if it had landed, I think, where he thought it was going to, then his timing was okay. But he flashed himself, and he had diffuser. If he had just dropped the diffuser outside the window, this might not have been as devastating. But it comes down to 1v3, and Razor just holding the diffuser in closet, and then somebody runs in. I think it's Hyper, and he gets killed, and then the time just hits 0. So it just came down to if Hyper killed him, they won. Dark Zero won, and if Razor killed Hyper, then Xset won. And so Xset does win. And they make some other mistakes throughout the game, but that was the most obvious one that we saw on screen, the most glaring one. And I will show that clip right here.
Kana is going to sit here and continue to play out the round. good news is, though, that's creating a little bit of an awkward wedge for Dark Zero's own Execute. Canadian's going to hop in, self-blinds himself in the process here, but Razor was hit as well. That won't matter, though, when Razor still ultimately wins the 1v1 versus Canadian, and arguably more importantly, drops the case on the ground and walk-in closet. Hyper and the rest of Dark Zero now need to work together to make that final push, get back the OBJ, and get onto the site with it, but I don't know if they'll be able to. NVK fends off some of the first players trying to do that. Hyper will trade on to Prod. Eclipse as well, though, in the site, battling his way to a potential win. They're doing this right now. It's all on Razor with the case in hand, but he can win it out on his own, and he's going to do it by just sitting in the corner and running the time down.
And yeah, besides that clip, there are, again, some other errors in the game. You see, Razor, this is the round, it's round 5 where that clip is from. He gets this 1v3. There's a 1v1 that comes in from Filthy in the 14th round, so he manages to clutch that out. It is a bit surprising. Dark Zero does lose in overtime. This is the first time they've lost in overtime between this stage and the last stage, and that maybe even going further back into stage 1. But Dark Zero has been the kings of overtime throughout the recent NAL, and finally that absolute reign of terror has ended. It was ended by Xset. And it's a bit of a surprise. So Dark Zero is going to need to boss up a little bit if they want to, if they want to make the major. Yeah, they're not in the greatest place, but they do have the most games to play left of anyone. So they still have a chance to make it. 6 points they have 6 points with 12 more points available to them. So we'll see where they go, but they definitely need to improve. And Xset looks like they're improving. This might be enough to get them out of the relegation position. We'll see. And now let's talk about the final game. Mirage versus Astralis. Daddy Dream and Nasty Nyx go big in this game, which is good because Dream hadn't been doing that well and Nyx had been doing especially bad. I think going into this game he was like the second lowest rated player. It's a little bit tricky because he doesn't seem like a bad player, but he seems like a weird player. He's playing on entry as the IGL, which isn't unheard of. I think Achieve does the same thing, but usually it's not the case. It's usually the IGL is the breach player. And things are evolving more these days to where it's not just one IGL. It is generally there's maybe like a primary IGL, quote unquote, but everyone, or at least several people on the team, are able to and making calls for the team, calling opportunities as they see them, this sort of thing. And so I imagine, because I think Dream has done some IGLing for maybe this team and perhaps Temple also in the past. Thomas was an IGL, and I don't know how vocal Benji and Loading are generally, but you would think that they should have a lot of leadership going on. And so good for Nyx that he comes out in force in this game. He does really well. He just was like the deciding factor. Maybe they could have won if he didn't put up such a performance because they do win 7-3. It's not like it was a close game and they barely won. But Nyx, I think, was the most important player on his team in this game, and Dream did very well as well. So not only that, but also Astralis, just they look bad. I don't know what it is. They don't look like a bad team on paper, but they have been playing so poorly this stage. In the first stage, they got 4th place, and then the next stage, they just missed out on 4th place. They got 5th, so respectable placings. And in this stage, they are currently in dead last. Only beat Xset, and they just struggled against pretty much everybody else. They got slapped up by Mirage in this game. And they have only 2 more games to play. They are sitting at the bottom. I'll look at it in a second, but they are sitting at the bottom of the standings with the fewest number of games to play out of everybody, and maybe like 1 or 2 other teams also only have 2, but tied with the fewest number of games left to play, so they only have 6 points left on the table. And for this game, there's not too much to talk about. It was pretty poorly played by Astralis and kind of poorly played by Mirage in a few rounds, but overall, Mirage definitely played a lot better. There was a choke by Nyx in one. Well, I guess maybe you might not call it a choke, but it definitely looked like it. He was in an effective 1v1. He had an enemy downed, and a player was still up. I think it was like DP Fire was down and Iconic was up, and he decides to kill DP Fire. He kills him, and then Iconic refrags him right after that. So if he had just played time, and I think there was not very much, like maybe a few seconds left on the clock. If he had just hid or ran or whatever, not gone for this kill, he might have clutched that round out. Definitely choked. But the clip I want to show for this game is another choke, as exacerbated by what Thomas does in the player cam afterwards. And actually, I don't recall what round it was, but they are in a 4v2, Astralis that is. It was, I think, a 5v3, and then they traded players, so it goes down to a 4v2, and there's about 12, 15 seconds left on the clock, something like that. And so Astralis needs to push into site, and they need to kill the last 2 players, or they need to plant the diffuser. And they are a little bit split up, so they basically have 2 2v1s. against, I don't remember who it is, Dream and somebody else. And I think Dream just straight up wins his 1v2. He kills both players, and then the other guy who was in Vault, he downs one player, I think, and then he dies to Iconic, and then Dream, just in time, he manages to lay down behind something, and the round ends with Dream, clutching against Iconic, who, yeah, Iconic was alone on his team. The last player left, and then Dream had one down player left, so it technically wasn't a 1vx clutch, but effectively it was. Anyways, I will show that round here.
These stuns will be able to mask his fall as well, so Thomas is more than likely missed out on him, and he has. He's made the move as well. Iconic gets the kill on Red Stairs, but Dream fires back. Astralis has to try and bully their way into sight now. We need this case to go down, but where is it at? It's in the likes of Shuttle's hands, but he's lost it now. And no, the kill's starting to go the way of Mirage. And oh no, the SMG-11 wielder, he'll make it out. And Astralis, how does this happen? Why do you let this happen? You can see Thomas. He's giving it to him, and honestly, Thomas, I can't fault you, man, because they are choking. What was that?
And yeah, heartbreaking for Astralis, and it's just, I don't want to say it exactly shows what went on this game, because that was just a close round, well played by Mirage. It was a choke by Astralis, but so maybe it does illustrate what was going on in the game. It just poorly played by Astralis in a lot of these rounds. I mean, they took the very first round, and then Mirage takes the next two, so it looked like it might mirror the first two games once again, but then Mirage continues because the team that won the first round in the first... No, that's not true. The alternate. So I guess, anyway, if it did mirror the first game, it wouldn't have mattered. But it did mirror them in that it was a 7-3, it just wasn't the exact same rounds won. If Mirage had won this round and Astralis had won this round, it would have been an exact mirror, right? Once again, 1-1, and then 2, 1-1. No. Okay, it would have had, whatever. It would have had to been a little bit different, but it was quite similar in that it was a 7-3, and one team made the other team look pretty bad. So that was that game. Let's take a look at the standings to conclude the video. From 1st through 9th, we have Sonics, Space Station, Oxygen, TSM, Dark Zero, Beast Coast, Mirage, Xset, and Astralis. Sonics, SSG, and Oxygen are tied in first place with 12 points, but they're not actually tied because there are head-to-heads here. Sonics beat SSG, and SSG beat Oxygen, so that establishes 1st through 3rd. And then, of course, TSM, 7 points, so there you go right there. Dark Zero has a better round differential than these two teams, and also they have more games left to play. They have 4 games left. Beast Coast has 3 games left, and Mirage has 2 games left. And then also Beast Coast has a head-to-head over Mirage, so that establishes 5, 6, 7, and then 5 points for Xset and 3 points for Astralis. So Xset still has 3 games left to play, but they have to play Oxygen, TSM, and SSG. So if they can continue to beat really good teams like they have already, they're in a good place. But even if they don't win any of those games, it is still on Astralis to get at least 2 points. Astralis does have the head-to-head against Xset, but they have 2 games to get 2 points. If they can do that, they will be ahead of Xset, but that's also assuming Xset does not get a single more point. That means they don't win if Xset wins a game, if they even take a game to overtime. So there's a lot of ways this can play out. Luckily, Astralis has the head-to-head, but Xset only needs a handful more points to almost secure being out of relegation. So it looks like it's going to be one of these two teams, and it's not guaranteed one or the other. Astralis still has to play... Oh, I think they play Beast Coast still, right? I don't think they've played. But that's a really good opportunity to get points, and then they also need to play who? Somebody else, I'm not sure. They played... anyways, I'll talk about it in like prediction video or something. So yeah, those are the standings, and that's what they're playing for. It's almost guaranteed at this point that these 3 teams, Sonics, Space Station, Oxygen, are gonna go to the major and go to SI. It's possible they don't, but as you can see, they're at 12 points, and all these teams below them have at most 9 points on the table, except for Dark Zero, which has 12 points. So for any of these teams to get knocked out of the top 4, they have to get passed by 2 teams, which isn't that likely. It is possible, but unlikely. We'll see what happens. But again, if that assumes that these teams don't get any more points and that these teams below them get a bunch of points, but then also several of these guys have head-to-heads against several of the guys below them, so even if they tie on points, they'll still win. So again, overwhelmingly likely, I think that these 3 are going to the major, and then also SI, because I think Sonics and Oxygen had a ton of points, and then SSG also have quite a few points. It looks like they're going. Maybe TSM, Dark Zero going to SI. We'll see how that pans out for those guys. But anyways, that was the recap for Playday number 6 of Stage 3 of the NAL 2021 season. I will catch you in the next video.